What does it actually mean to be a good person? It's probably one of the biggest questions we humans ever ask ourselves. Today we're going to dive into that question, but we'll be looking at it through the incredibly rich landscape of Islamic intellectual history. We're going to unpack 5 really distinct ways of thinking about goodness.
It really all boils down to this, doesn't it? How do we know what's right? Every single culture, every philosophy has tried to answer this. And for good reason. It's the absolute foundation for how we build our communities and, how we live our day-to-day lives.
So let's get into it. What is it that makes an action good? Well, the Islamic tradition doesn't just hand you one simple answer. Instead, it offers something much more powerful, a kind of philosophical toolkit filled with different frameworks to help you reason through moral questions.
And inside that toolkit, we're going to focus on 5 major theories. Now, I want you to think of them as 5 different lenses. You can look at the very same problem through each one, and each time, you'll see something new, a different angle you might have missed before. So let's start with the first couple.
Okay, our first 2 approaches get at a really classic idea in philosophy. Is morality something that comes from the outside, something we're told, or is it something that comes from within us? We can think of this as the difference between having a detailed manual versus having an internal compass.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you have divine command theory. Here, the focus is all about obedience to God. Pretty straightforward. What's right is what God commands. But on the other side, you have fitra, and this focuses on our own human nature, the idea that we kind of naturally recognize what's good. One is external, the other is internal. See the difference?
So let's nail down that first one. Divine command theory is the belief that morality, what's right, what's wrong, is determined entirely by God's commands, just as they're laid out for us in Scripture. The source of what's good is totally outside of us. It's transcendent. A really great way to think about this is to imagine a user manual. Think of humanity as this incredibly complex, intricate machine. Now, who would know best how that machine should run to work perfectly and last a long time? Well, the manufacturer, right? The one who made it. In this view, Scripture is that perfect user manual for all of us.
Now, let's flip the coin and look at fitra. This is the idea of an innate, natural disposition that's baked into every single one of us from birth. It's this deep, inherent sense of goodness and truth that we all share.
And this leads to a fantastic analogy. If divine command theory is like being given a perfect map, fitra is like having an inbuilt moral compass. So even if you don't have that map or you've lost it, you still have this internal device that's always pointing you in the right direction, toward what is fundamentally good.
All right, let's grab our next set of lenses. We're going to shift our focus a little bit. Now we're moving away from the source of morality and looking more at the outcomes and the goals of our actions. The big question here is, what's actually best for everyone, for the common good?
And that brings us to this principle called maslaha. This is a super pragmatic lens. It basically says we should judge an action based on its results. We have to ask, does this action create a real benefit for people, or does it stop something harmful from happening? It's all about the public welfare.
Think about it like a city planner. When a city planner is deciding whether to build, say, a new park or a hospital, they're not just following some abstract rulebook. No, they're weighing the pros and cons for the whole community. That's maslaha in a nutshell, doing what's best for the collective.
Now, something that's closely related, but a little different, is the idea of maqasid al-sharia. This isn't so much about the outcome of one specific action. Instead, it's about the higher objectives, the ultimate goals of the entire legal and ethical system. It's all about protecting the absolute core necessities of human life.
And the analogy for this is just brilliant. An emergency room doctor. What's the ER doc's #1 job? To stabilize the patient and protect their vital signs. Well, the maqasad are seen as the 5 vital signs of a healthy society. You have to preserve faith, life, intellect, lineage, and property. Any ethical decision has to, at its core, work to protect these foundations.
So it's really important to get the distinction here. Maslaha is the city planner, right? It's looking at the beneficial outcomes of a specific choice. But maqasid is the ER doctor, focused on protecting the fundamental goals, the vital signs that keep the whole system going. It's a subtle but really powerful difference.
Okay, so for our 5th and final lens, we're making another big shift. This time, we're moving the focus away from rules, away from consequences, and we're putting it right on the person who is acting. The question is no longer, what's the right action? But instead,
What kind of person should I be?
And this is known as akhlaq, or what we call virtue ethics. This whole approach isn't about judging single actions as right or wrong. It's about the long, slow process of cultivating a virtuous character. The thinking is, if you become a good person, if you're just and compassionate and courageous, then good actions will just naturally flow from you.
I really love this analogy of the gardener. See, a good gardener doesn't stress out about every single apple on the tree. Instead, they focus all their energy on creating rich, healthy soil. They know that if the soil is good, then good fruit will grow naturally year after year. Virtue ethics is all about cultivating that rich moral soil inside ourselves.
So, there we have it. 5 different lenses. Now let's pull back and see how they all fit together to create one holistic view of ethics. Let's recap. We have the user manual from Divine Command giving us clear instructions. We have the inner compass of Fitra giving us our sense of direction. We have the city plan of Maslaha helping us build for the common good. We have the vital signs of the Maqasid protecting society's core. And we have the moral garden of Akhlaq reminding us to work on ourselves.
And this, right here, is probably the most important thing to remember. These are not competing ideas where you have to pick a side. Not at all. They are complementary tools in one big, comprehensive, ethical toolkit. When you're faced with a really tough moral problem, you might need to look through 2 or 3 or even all 5 of these lenses to find the best way forward.
And that brings it all back to you. When you think about the choices you make every day, the big ones and the small ones, which of these lenses do you find yourself using? Are you checking the manual? Following your compass? Thinking like a city planner? Protecting the vital signs? Or are you just quietly tending to your garden? It's definitely something worth thinking about.